to the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show with Corey and Justin. Here they are, the Fourth and Long Fantasy Brothers.
Welcome to episode 22 of the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show. My name is Corey, and I am here with my actual brother, Justin.
Hello, this is Justin.
It is episode 22. We are right in the midst of a very, very interesting fantasy season. Justin, let's get things started by talking about Le'Veon Bell going to the Chiefs. He's going to debut this weekend. Should be a good one.
Yeah, last week we talked about the fact that the Jets had released Le'Veon. We didn't really speculate too much on where he'd land, but man, talk about the landing spot, right? With the Kansas City Chiefs, the high-powered offense with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. You got to look at it though from a holistic perspective, especially the running back position. You got to wonder how this is going to impact Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I look at this running back room, and I think it's going to probably end up being more of a 50-50, maybe 60-40 split. If there's anybody that get the most out of Le'Veon here, it's going to be Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, man. I think if you're a Le'Veon Bell owner, you got to be pretty excited, right? He leaves the wasteland that was the New York Jets backfield and Adam Gase. Now he goes to arguably the best coach in the league and Andy Reid, highest powered offense in the league right now, the Kansas City Chiefs. It's got to be a boon to his value, right, Corey?
Yeah, I don't think there were a lot of exciting situations out there. There weren't many situations where he was going to be able to go and take over the complete job. So if that's the case and that's the situation, this is kind of sort of the best remaining option for Le'Veon Bell here. And so I'm pretty excited to see what it means. I'm going to love seeing Bell in a Chiefs uniform. It's sort of like one of those dream matchups you wish to see. And now they're matched up, and now we're going to see Le'Veon Bell on the best offense in the league.
Yeah, and if you're a Clyde Edwards-Helaire owner, you probably invested a late first, early second-round pick in the guy. We're on draft season. Don't sell him for pennies on the dollar. I think Edwards-Helaire and Bell will have standalone value. I think they'll both be solid RB2s from here on out.
I think it curbs his upside, though, Justin. I think this past week was probably the last time you're going to see a Clyde Edwards-Helaire 160-plus yard game. I think now it's going to be more of an even split. I think they're both going to have a pretty reliable low-end RB2 floor, but I think that high-end elite RB1 ceiling is probably gone. Do you agree?
Yeah, Corey, but honestly, Clyde wasn't really giving you those high-end RB1 weeks. He was more of a RB2, high-end RB2, and I think he'll be right around there. This past week, he did look really good against the Bills. I'm not going to lie. I mean, he was ripping off runs of 8-9 yards at a time. He looked electric out there. I think he'll have standalone value. They'll both probably end up getting anywhere from 12 to 15 touches a week. I think they'll both be weekly RB2s.
Well, Justin, let's dive into now our injury quick hits for the week. And let's go through these quickly. We'll get started with a couple Eagles situations. Talk to me about Miles Sanders.
Yeah, Miles Sanders, knee injury. They're saying he's definitely going to be out for Thursday Night Football this week. Boston Scott's the ad. Not sure how long he's going to be out. Monitor the practice reports for next week.
And what about Zach Ertz, Justin? There's another Eagles situation that, it was ugly to start. We talked about it. I think it was either last week or the week before. Now it's even uglier.
Oh, man, tell you what, Zach Ertz, just more and more frustrating as the weeks go on, right? The guy's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks, they're saying now. We'll talk about Dallas Goedert here in a little bit.
Justin, what about Joe Mixon, who came up with a foot issue in last week's game? What's the situation with him?
Yeah, foot issues, never a good thing for running backs, but he did come back out. He played the second half. He did get subbed out for Gio Bernard late in the game. Zach Taylor claimed it was because Gio's a better fit for their 2-minute offense. I'm scratching my head there for that one. Monitor reports here as the week unfolds. If Mixon does, in fact, miss the game, Bernard could be the bell cow. He could be an RB2 this week.
Another one we're not sure about, Justin, is Mark Ingram, but we've talked about the whole Ravens situation on the show, and it's not really an appealing situation at all, but does Ingram possibly being out or being limited in the next few weeks open up a situation?
It could open the door for Dobbins, but, Gus Edwards out-touched him this past week after Ingram's injury. The good news for Mark Ingram and the owners of Mark Ingram is that he does have a bye week this week. The Ravens are not going to play. They'll be back in week 8. Monitor reports leading up to week 8. If he's not going to play, Gus and Dobbins could shoulder a heavier load.
Justin, another sure thing that we're pretty much knowing is going to be for fact is that Raheem Mostert's not going to be available for a few weeks. What's going on with him?
High ankle sprain for Raheem Mostert. Guy just came back from being injured. Kyle Shanahan saying that he could go on IR. I think the pickup's going to be McKinnon. JaMychal Hasty came out and played pretty well in the second half, but I'd probably focus my efforts on acquiring McKinnon if I could at this time.
And then, Justin, we had a tight end one in the making in Jonnu Smith, and then unfortunately got hit with an ankle injury. What's going on with him?
Yeah, ankle injury for Jonnu Smith. I was starting to believe in him as a high-end tight end one, but then he got hurt. The backup tight end ended up having a career day. It could have been Jonnu Smith, man. It's believed to be minor. I think he could be back here for week 7. Just monitor reports this week.
Justin, last week we wanted to talk about a couple situations, the Indy offense and A.J. Brown and the Tennessee offense. What did we learn? Get us started with the Indy offense.
Yeah, Indy's offense looked pretty good this week. I'm not going to lie. I mean, Rivers was throwing the ball pretty well. I'm not going to lie though, his pass catchers did kind of spare him on some of those throws by making diving catches. You saw that Jack Doyle catch in the end zone there where he came up gimp after diving for that touchdown. I'm not going to overreact quite yet. I have to see it for a couple more weeks before I'm confident in starting any Colt.
Justin, and I asked you if we were wrong about Tennessee, and week in and week out, I think we're wrong about Tennessee. We were wrong because A.J. Brown, another solid week, and the whole Tennessee offense looked really good, didn't they?
Yeah, man. I mean, look at Derrick Henry, right? The guy just lit up the week here. Put up, 38 standard points this week. Insane. A.J. Brown looked good as well. I'm starting to slowly turn around, man, and think that the Titans might have been the wrong call. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll adjust and we'll move forward with that, but definitely an intriguing prospect for A.J. Brown's future. I would say if you got him, start him, fire him up, and enjoy the ride because it's looking like it's going to be a good one. And with that said, Justin, let's get to it.
On today's show,
all right, we continue our weekly format for you this week, and today Justin and I will discuss a past, a present, and a future topic as we reflect on week 6 and the week that was, and we'll get you prepared for your week 7 matchups. Justin, why don't you get us started in the past? Because last week we ended up learning a lot, and one of the things we learned is that this high-powered Texans offense that we thought was going to be good may now be coming into form.
Yeah, we've had 2 games now without Bill O'Brien, Romeo Crennel, the head coach. And I tell you what, man, they seemed energized. Now, I'm going to caveat this, right? They did play the Jags and the Titans, who are bottom defenses, but it is encouraging, right? You look at Deshaun Watson, he's passed for over 750 yards and 7 touchdowns the last 2 games. Will Fuller's put on a clinic, 181 yards and 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games. And then Brandon Cooks has really emerged, right? The guy that we thought was going to be a sleeper this year for the Houston Texans. He's emerged with 229 yards and 2 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. And then on top of that, we look at David Johnson, right? You always wonder when there's a coaching shift, a philosophy change in the locker room, if that regime is going to bring a new outlook on their running back situation, their offensive situation in general. But David Johnson's continued to dominate touches in the backfield. He had 19 touches 2 weeks ago, 21 touches this past week. He had a touchdown this week. He's an RB2, man. I feel very confident in starting him as an RB2 from here on out. Now, the Texans averaged 20 points through the first 4 games with Bill O'Brien at the helm. Now they've scored 30-plus points in back-to-back games since firing Bill O'Brien. I think you're right, Corey. I think the Houston Texans are beginning to come into form. They look like they're firing in all cylinders. Start your Texans.
Justin, was it Bill O'Brien's play calling? Was it Bill O'Brien's presence in the locker room? Or was it a really nasty first 4-week schedule that really changed this offense now?
It could be a combination of all, honestly. You've seen what a toxic locker room can do to a team, right? I mean, we're even starting to hear things about the Cowboys and their locker room now. And you wonder if the Texans locker room was a bit divided. There wasn't that motivation. There wasn't that sort of, team mentality that most teams need to be successful. It's probably a combination of both, man.
So, Justin, speaking of that, can I ask you a question? Do we think now that we are past week 6, can we say that we have a pretty good hold on what this fantasy season looks like and what our talent looks like now?
Yeah, I think after the first 6 weeks here, we've got a pretty good idea of who the stars are going to be, who the busts are, and what the trends are. So, yeah, I agree.
So, Justin, does that mean that I can take a victory lap on a certain guy?
I think you might be able to, Corey.
So let's talk, Justin, about Mr. Ronald Jones. Now, Ronald Jones is a guy that I have been hyping since the very first show, the very first episode that we did. And I said to watch out for this guy. I believe I predicted a top 20, maybe top 15 finish for Ronald Jones. I predicted that he was the guy in Tampa to own. I am not going to lie. I got disheartened when Leonard Fournette joined the backfield. But boy, if there's a guy that's running into walls in the backfield and another guy that just seems to not go down, keep his balance, and keep on moving forward, you would probably think, if you were just sort of the typical fantasy player, oh, the guy that's going to keep the ball moving is Leonard Fournette, and the guy that just runs into the back of defenders is Ronald Jones. But that has been so far from the truth, because Ronald Jones, Justin, has not only been putting up solid high-end RB2 numbers. I mean, just in standard, I was looking today. In standard scoring, he hasn't put up less than 7. That is really good RB2 numbers, plus many double-digit performances in that time. I mean, I think this guy is really trending towards being a reliable starting option. And right now, I think he's becoming a set it and forget it. Is that true? Or is Leonard Fournette's return this week going to really throw a wrench into things again for Rojo?
Corey, 3 straight games of over 100 rushing yards for Ronald Jones, right? The guy's averaging almost 5 yards a carry. He currently sits at number 4 in the NFL in rushing yards. He's the real deal, man. We talked about coming into the season how Tom Brady's running backs find a lot of success, and Ronald Jones has been the main beneficiary of that. I don't think that Leonard Fournette's going to play as big of a role in this offense as we think we might have when he was first signing with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Ronald Jones, in my mind, is a rock-solid RB2 from here on out.
Yeah, so if you were someone who, like me, believed in this guy's talent and thought that he was going to rise with this Tom Brady offense, then you are reaping the benefits right now. He is a set-it-and-forget-it, startable RB2, and that is just a good situation to be in. Justin, let's move to the present. We want to talk about a couple of Eagles situations. Why don't you get us started with a guy who might have dropped out into your free agency and is a guy that you're going to want to put a waiver claim on sooner rather than later?
Yeah, 2 big-name injuries this week for the Eagles, both Miles Sanders and then Zach Ertz going down. Eagles are going to look a lot different here on Thursday Night Football against the Giants, and I think the priority for you guys should be Dallas Goedert, the tight end for the Eagles. Now, we talked about Ertz last week, and as frustrating as it's been, it gets more frustrating, right? Week in and week out. Now, the Ertz injury opens the door for Goedert to establish himself as a top 5 tight end in my mind. They're saying that Ertz is going to be out for at the minimum the next 3 to 4 weeks. And even if he does come back, there's always that risk of re-injury. Now, reports say that Goedert could be back this week for Thursday Night Football. Now, it's not confirmed yet. We're recording this on Tuesday night. Monitor reports, and if you can, in fact, scoop him up, grab him, man. He's a locked and loaded tight end 1. Now, not only that, but he was a startable tight end even with Ertz healthy at the beginning of the season. Could you imagine him without Ertz in the fold? All the attention he's going to get from Carson Wentz. If he plays, he's locked and loaded, top 5 at the position. If someone happened to drop him over the last couple weeks while he was healing up, go scoop him up, man. It's time for Goedert to rise to the top 5 tight end territory.
And Justin, is it fair to say that if you're in Dynasty and he's out there, it is time to grab him? I think the Ertz-Eagles marriage may be coming to an end, and then Goedert is the guy to own in Philly.
Yeah, there's even been rumors swirling that Zach Ertz could have been traded at the deadline. There were some rumors about the Cardinals and some other teams out there. But yeah, I think it could be Goedert time, man. If you can get him in Dynasty, go get him, man, because he could be a locked and loaded tight end 5 or higher for the next couple of years.
So, Justin, we don't always agree on a lot, but I'm going to agree with you there, and I'm curious if you agree with me on this next guy. Let's talk about Boston Scott. Now, I think a lot of people, Justin, are going to be intrigued by the idea of Boston Scott because he's about to potentially assume a starting role in a backfield that has seen success in the past. But I think, Justin, my thought on this is this offense is not the same. This is not a high-profile, really effective offense, and it makes me worry about a guy that you're relying on for situation. I think you and I can agree that we're going to believe in Dallas Goedert because he's got the talent to be able to succeed in any offense. He is a really, really talented tight end. But I'm not convinced, Justin, that Boston Scott is an effective and really, really talented running back. So I am going to say that he's probably going to be a lot of people's number 1 waiver priority this week. And I get it, right? If you're hurting at running back, you've suffered one of these injuries, I can certainly see you going out and doing that. But if you're not a team that's suffering and you're just looking for sort of bench depth, I personally, Justin, don't think he's the guy to own. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we'll look back at week 1, right? Miles Sanders was out week 1 against the Washington football team, and Boston Scott was kind of deemed the RB1 for that week. I mean, he only had 35 yards on the ground, 19 yards through the air. He averaged less than 4 yards a carry. I don't necessarily know that he's worth the number 1 claim this week, especially given the fact that they're saying that Sanders may only miss 1, maybe 2 games at the most. With that Swiss cheese offensive line, I don't necessarily know that he's the claim, Corey. I think I agree with you there.
Yeah, and Justin, I'm not the biggest of Miles Sanders fans, but even I can admit, right? Like the reason why Miles is able to produce is just because of some truly athletic talent that we don't see in other running backs. And if we learned anything from this past week, right, didn't Alexander Madison prove that it's not about the situation all the time? It's more about the talent of the guy who's actually running the ball.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I mean, you look at Madison's output this past week, and it couldn't be truer. I mean, I think if you're a Sanders owner, you probably want to prioritize getting him as a handcuff. But if you're not a Sanders owner, I don't necessarily know that he's worth the ad this week.
Right. This, to me, Justin, this is not a Mike Davis situation because I've always liked what Mike Davis can offer. I don't really like what Boston Scott has to offer. I'm passing. I'm not really considering him as an option. So let's move forward, Justin, and let's look into the future, what we're looking at this week. Speaking of running backs, out of a bye week, we may have seen the changing of the guard in one Detroit football team.
Yeah, Corey, you look at the Lions running game, right? The changing of the guard, as you said. We saw DeAndre Swift be effective this week. They came out of the bye week, the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Adrian Peterson was primarily dominating the backfield snaps, the backfield touches. He was getting anywhere from, 12 to 20 touches a game, and he wasn't really doing much with it. I think Patricia and the entire head coaching staff for the Lions were really coaching for their jobs this week. And, you look at most teams, right? Struggling teams especially, they tend to change up their approach and game plan coming out of a bye week. And DeAndre Swift really took hold of that this week. You look at this week, DeAndre Swift and Adrian Peterson each had 14 carries. Swift gained 116 yards, while Adrian Peterson only gained 32. The other thing that was encouraging for Swift was that his snap share was up nearly 40% of the snaps this week. That could continue to grow, man. It really could. Now, selfishly, right? I'm concerned about Kerryon Johnson. Is it time to retire Kerryon Johnson? Oh my gosh. I mean, this guy was one of my favorite players the first 2 years of his career. I was encouraged that he would still be a big part of this offense this year, but man, it's just not happening. And, DeAndre Swift's usage and production was encouraging. If I own DeAndre Swift, I'd be excited. I'm not going to be starting him yet, right? But the prospects of his role continuing to grow over the next number of weeks and him really taking a stranglehold of this backfield before the end of the season looks a lot more likely than it did before. He's an upside RB3 in my mind. If you can buy him on the cheap, buy him now before he really breaks out.
Yeah, Justin, this is not the way that I thought the situation would end up, but it is definitely what is happening. There is one situation, Justin, though, that I'm pretty sure I knew was going to happen because I ended up calling it right before the season started, and that was the guy that I am going to refer to as Tua Tags, because I think we've established on the show that I have no idea how to say his last name. But Tua is going to be starting, Justin, in Miami coming out of the bye. And that's just a really exciting and just heartwarming story to talk about. Now, he was an impressive college performer. He is more known, even though, you might not think about this of quarterbacks kind of coming out of college, but he's well known for being a really strong pocket passer, while also having the potential to mimic a guy like Russell Wilson, who can really scramble when he needs to and put the ball down the field with incredible accuracy. I think this is the guy to own in Dynasty. I think this is an incredible quarterback move for the Miami Dolphins. I'm surprised they didn't do it sooner. I just think there's something about Halloween, Justin, where teams decide, all right, Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's been fun, but the time is over for you. It's time to bring in the new guy. And are you as excited as I am, Justin? Because I really want Week 8 to be here, and I really want to see what Tua can do.
I liked Tua when he was at Bama in his collegiate career. He was one of the better college quarterbacks. I think one of the things you're going to have to do is approaching Week 8 with the Dolphins is you're going to have to approach their skill players, right? Myles Gaskin, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Mike Gesicki. You're going to have to approach them cautiously, right? Because we just don't know what this offense is going to look like under Tua. I'd say give it a week. Let the offense kind of evolve, see what you can take away from Week 8 when Tua does step in under the helm, and then adjust from there, man.
Right, Justin. If you're in the situation and you have the ability to potentially, sit a guy down who is going to be, one of the main skill position players on the Miami Dolphins, let's say you have the depth to be able to do that, it's certainly not a bad call. I was kind of saying to you privately that I would do the same thing as, the Cowboys were trying to figure themselves out with Dalton. And, of course, Tua may pepper your guy and you may find out that your guy is an even better start, but sometimes it's worth waiting a week and going with the consistent option. So I'm in agreement. I don't think you start Tua in Week 8. I think you try and avoid a lot of the skill position players just to see how this is going to work out. But at the same time, I think you have to be really, really intrigued at what this can do for this Miami offense. I think it's only going to be good things. I think Tua is going to come at this with a much more conservative mindset. I don't think he's going to be as gunslinger as Ryan Fitzpatrick is. I think this is good for Miami. I think this is good for the NFL, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good on the Dolphins, right, for having a plan, right? They probably had this plan predetermined before the season started, right? We're going to give Fitzpatrick the first half of the year to do what he does, right? Sling the ball around, win us some games, have some fun, and then we're going to throw our young rookie out there. And I think it's the right thing, right? Give Tua a couple weeks to develop under Fitzpatrick, right? Learn the scheme, learn how to read defenses, and then throw him out there in week 8. Now, he does get the Rams, right, in week 8, which is going to be tough. He's going to be looking at Aaron Donald the entire time. But, man, I like the prospect of him being a fantasy-relevant quarterback by the end of the year and being a really high upside guy with a lot of potential going into the 2021 season.
Yep, Justin, I compared him to, in a previous show, to the Colin Kaepernick of the year when Colin Kaepernick took over the job for Alex Smith in San Francisco. And I think this is going to be a similar situation where by the end of the year, if you have him and you already have a starting quarterback on your roster, it's going to be a good problem to have because you're not going to be sure who to start, because I think Tua is going to provide a lot of upside for both the Miami Dolphins and your fantasy team.
Yeah, he's a great upside stash in a dynasty league. If he's out there, go grab him, man.
Right, and I agree, Justin. So I guess we'll see. We'll see how that all works out, and very excited for the week that is to come. So there we go, Justin. Our Week 7 show for the 2020 season is now officially in the books. Next week, we will continue our weekly seasonal episodes. We'll recap Week 7, and we'll get you ready for Week 8. Please remember to subscribe and hit the bell. Download, follow, like, comment, whatever you have to do to show some support. I'm Corey.
And I'm Justin.
And this has been the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show. We'll see you next time.
Royalty-free music courtesy of Ben Sound. The views and opinions expressed on today's episode are that of the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show. Remember to like and subscribe.